Hi students, this is Mrs. Mignell with the third part to the critical reading response, which is connections or synthesis. First, I want you to realize that academic writing strives to make these connections. And the example that I can give is when you're reading through Tara Westover's Educated, a Memoir, you'll notice that sprinkled throughout the book, she makes a number of connections. Now, in literature, that's called an allusion. But the same thing happens in academic papers. You'll notice that in chapter 24, when she talks about getting the money, the grant from the government, and all of a sudden she's able to not focus on not having enough money. She's able to take better notes, listen in her classes, read more than what she's used to. That can refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I encourage you to pause the video, go ahead and Google it, and watch a video or two on it to find out what it means. On page 176, Sean takes to calling her names, and he calls her Wilbur. Now, if you haven't read Charlotte's Web, you may not get that connection that in Charlotte's Web, Charlotte is the spider and Wilbur is the pig. So, and Charlotte makes these webs that say that's some pig in order for the farmer to believe that Wilbur is special and shouldn't be slaughtered. A number of times in the book, part 2 and then part 3, Tara makes the connection about her dad and Don Quixote, who is a mentally challenged knight in Spain. Pull up some of the short videos on Don Quixote, and you'll see how Don Quixote his perception of the world is incorrect, just as Jean's perception of the world is incorrect. Pygmalion is the story about an uneducated woman who is educated later in life and then functions in that educated society. There are some videos online. You could also watch the movie My Fair Lady, which is the story of Pygmalion. And then there is the story about the drowned man who says that God will save him. He's on his roof and a rowboat comes by, or a police vessel, and a helicopter, and he turns them all down. And after he dies and goes to heaven, he kind of yells at God saying, "Why didn't you save me?" And he said, "I did. I sent you a rowboat, police vessel, and a helicopter, but you didn't get in." I was so reminded of this story when there were so many things that the bishop was trying to do to help Tara out, when she didn't have money to pay rent, when she had the problem with her tooth, and she just refused every single gift that he tried to offer to help her. So in academic writing, in books and in articles, people aim to make connections with other things. So the purpose of this connection part of the critical reading response is for you to think about how the two sources that you are writing about in the critical reading response connect to each other. The purpose of this is that it enables you to consider how your point differs from what the source is, because you are not writing a paper that summarizes everybody else's point. You're writing a paper that has your point, and you're using the sources to discuss how you've made your point. It enables you to own what each source says. You can confidently discuss what they say and how they're different. And it enables you how to discuss your point and how your sources support and challenge it. And this is what comprises your essay, is your ability to discuss, to make connections, to give your readers a way to understand how the point you're making and the sources, evidence connect to your plausible point. It takes some practice, and this really is a higher order thinking skill. So we're at the point where you're going to need to pause, because in order to write the connections, the synthesis part of the critical reading response, you need to have read two sources. So you need to have two works cited reference sources. You need to have 2 preface statements. And then you can sit down and consider how these 2 sources complement each other. How are they the same? How are they different? So go ahead and pause the video. Take the time to research that second source if you have not done so already. Write the works cited citation, the preface statement, sentences A and B, because you cannot proceed to write the connection part until you have done this. Okay, wonderful. So you've got that done. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take some time to think about how these 2 sources connect. And I will suggest that you take a look at who the authors are, because you should investigate, research, who is this author? Are they credible? So maybe one went to Yale and one went to Fresno State. Who are their audience? Maybe one is the readers of the Wall Street Journal who are educated and business owners, but another one is Mother Jones, who tend to be far left. So you want to take a look at who is the audience for the publication. What about the evidence? What kind of evidence do they use? Does one source use personal experience and another source use authorities and research studies? Common errors in a critical reading response is that students think that this is a place for you to tell me that you have read the article and can understand it. So a lot of times I get so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this, or I'll say Corbett said this, then she said this, and then she said that. But that is not what I'm asking for. I'm really asking for Corbett's education, University of Iowa, I think. Another source went to another institution, majoring in what major. It gives you a way to understand how the sources differ, okay? So that's the type of thing that I would like you to be able to discuss. Here's an example of a connection paragraph on Kaplan and Petrasch. I know you have not read Kaplan. Kaplan wrote an essay about some questioning the validity of college. And Petrasch writes about the misconceptions that students come in. So I have bolded and underlined the ways that I have compared these 2 articles. I talk about the authors who are professors, their audience, the points that they make, what they don't discuss, and how they support it with the evidence, what they question. Okay, so these are ways that you can discuss, compare and contrast what each author talks about in their article on the subtopic that you are using in your paper. And now that you have written your paragraph, I want to know if you have any questions. Go ahead and either send me a Canvas conversation or ask it on the discussion board for question. And that is it for the 3rd section of the critical reading response.